Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Dr. Bart Lenahan, principal of the middle school. I'd like to welcome everybody to the 5th to 6th grade transition night. I'd like to introduce the staff that's here to present tonight. First, our assistant principal, Mr. Scott DeBellis, Mr. Andrew Colasuino, our assistant principal for student services and athletics, Mrs. Deborah DiFrancesco, our guidance counselor, Mrs. Maria Beach, our 6th grade teacher, and Mr. Eric Sullivan, our school psychologist. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I thought I'd begin by just giving you an overview on the evolution of the middle school. It's been in process for about 40 years. I was one of the initial middle school teachers, if you can believe it. Basically, the changes in society have fostered changes in how the middle school operates and how the accountability of the middle school. It was initially developed to address the social and emotional needs uniquely related to adolescents. However, as you may imagine, changes in society fostered changes in the middle school. For example, two parents working, single-parent homes, the explosion of multimedia, personal computers, iPhones, social media, all stimulated change, and while your children are here, I suspect it will continue to stimulate change. Then complicating the mission is the state standards. About 15 years ago, New York State really got intimately involved in the educational process at the middle school and high school with standards, with testing, and curriculum development. So there's a lot that's been changed in the middle school the past 10 or 15 years. I wanted to give you a little bit of background because it's not going to stop. Obviously with technology, you're going to have changes. You used to have changes every couple of decades, and now you have changes in technology every 2 or 3 years. So we'll talk more about that. To complicate the mission, also instructional technology has changed. So how students learn, how teachers deliver instruction has also made a big difference in how students learn. The middle school that you went to, you wouldn't recognize today, and nor should you, because we've made a lot of improvements in development based upon technology. And also, we have a shrinking world. There's a global connections now are just much more in the forefront. So that's always impacting how we teach, how we develop students in preparation for the 21st century. To counter that, we develop a strategic plan. Obviously, going back to the roots of the middle school, SEL was a critical component of the first middle school initiative. So we use a team approach here at the middle school, which we'll hear more about from our guidance counselor. We have ongoing support. We're a small middle school, which I think is fantastic because it offers, the research will tell you, schools above 400 enrollment have more of a challenge in developing relationships and long-term learning for students. The research tells you stay below 400 if you can. If you see what's going on in New York City, I grew up in the Bronx, and basically there were schools of 3,000, 2,000, 1,500. They've all taken those large buildings in the city and developed much smaller schools within the large buildings. So you may have 3 or 4 middle schools in a large building in New York City. Fortunately, here at Tuckahoe, we're blessed, and you have been blessed since the school was created 25 years ago. It's always been small, and the research supports that. So the relationships with the students and the teachers is paramount here, both in their academic and intellectual and emotional development. Classroom presentations, our guidance counselor and support staff go into the classrooms and work with students on SEL. We have professional development from the teachers ongoing, and it's embedded in the curriculum. The health curriculum, Mr. Colasuino is a former health teacher. He can answer any questions you have. He's well familiar with the curriculum. ELA, I'll give you an example. They may talk about a character in literature and how the emotional makeup of that character drives the decisions and the outcomes in that character's life. Social studies, obviously, with components on how decision-making is critical for character and leadership development. Next is diverse learners. It's technology-based. As I said, with technology, we now have blended learning. Visual literacy is obviously a big aspect of 21st century learning. Obviously, code and reading are still very important, but they have been challenged by the visual tech. Just take out your phone, and it's pictures with a comment underneath. So we're preparing our students basically to be avid readers, but also to be savvy advocates in the 21st century regarding technology. Technology has also been a big factor in diminishing the challenge of differentiated instruction. 25 years ago, 15 years ago, differentiated instruction, the teachers really had to be, it was a bigger challenge. Now with technology and computers, differentiated needs, different diverse learners, how students learn can be adapted to through technology. So that's a big factor that has changed. And finally, this district has initiated project-based learning, which allows for students really to research, to get more involved, and it allows them to get involved in what they're interested in, which helps with student motivation. So these are all some of the factors going on with diverse learners. Contemporary learning. Education has become more data-driven. At the team meetings, you'll get qualitative data from the teachers, what they see in the classroom, what's going on. It's a team approach, so teachers talk to other teachers. Ms. Steve will give you more information on that. But also from a quantitative approach, we've introduced iReady. We use the data from the state exams to really facilitate information on the student. The district also last summer introduced LATIC training, which is really intense project-based learning. Several of the middle school teachers did take that professional development. And what it does is it introduces project-based learning from a unit base. So students really, they get what they're interested in. It could be a question, an idea, a theme, and they will do research and do inquiry-based learning on that and make presentations to different modalities. So those are some of the contemporary needs. Professional learning is the last aspect. One of the things we're looking at, things are changing. Science of the brain. Last year we had a presentation of the teachers and how students think, how they react emotionally, basically from a science point of view. Technology application. There's a lot of great applications in technology the middle school is utilizing. And I know you've been reading, I've heard about artificial intelligence. The district is well prepared to get teachers involved with that and how we can best utilize that from an educational perspective. So those are some of the things that we're looking at from the strategic plan. Just one of the things you should be aware of, and this is as your child progresses from Cottle into the 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, it is still very much a grade level team approach. But as they progress into the secondary level, 8th grade into high school, it becomes more of a curricular department approach, ELA, math, social studies. So obviously at the high school, it's all departments. So that's just it'll evolve gradually for you. 6th grade, you might not even notice it, but it's there. I mean, the teachers, 6th grade teachers work with the 7th grade teachers in their departments, 8th grade teachers in departments, and obviously the high school is all departments. So there's a dual effect going on here. I just think it's important for you to be aware of as your child progresses through the middle school. Mr. Chris Keogh is our Director of Curriculum. If you have any specific questions, we'll answer them tonight. If we can, we'll give it to him and have him give you a call. And at this time, I'll call up Mrs. DeFrancesco and Mr. Sullivan to talk about 6th grade.
I hope your kids had some fun today running around the school and having lunch. We were told by a parent that the lunchroom was a hit. It's a new lunchroom, so I hope it looking good as well as the food tasting okay was to their liking. When they come up here, I know they have departmentalized. Can everybody hear me? Because I don't like that. When they come up here, I know they have a departmentalized approach down in Cottle. They also have it here. The only difference is that we don't have a wing period like they've had in the past. No, I don't think the 5th grade has it this year, but they've had a wing period in the past. So if you look in your brochure that you should have gotten when you came in, period 1 is music or phys ed. So if your child's in strings, or your child's in band, or your child's in chorus, that's where they would take that. It's also where they would have phys ed. It's also where they would have, if your child gets reading, they would get reading during that period. Okay? If you have a 6-day cycle, unlike Cottle, the kids will get used to it. They announce it every day. It's on the TV when you first walk in. We don't expect them to know in the first couple of weeks of school. They're going to get lost, even though 90% of their classes will be on the first floor, they get lost. So the teachers will allow for that. They understand. Please tell your children not to be nervous. It's okay. 2nd, 3rd, 4th period, they're going to have 4 area subjects: math, science, social studies, English. And remember, in 6th grade, again, different than Cottle, we have 2 Englishes in 6th grade. So they're going to see the same English teacher twice. They're going to go to lunch, go home be outside while the other half eats, and then they flip-flop. They have about 20 minutes in each place. They go to period 6 and they have what is considered, say, specials. Our specials in 6th grade are STEM, art, health, and geography. So those are some of the things that they'll take. If they need to go to AIS during their specials, they'll go to AIS, different than CAGA, right? So if a kid needs AIS, we don't make you jump through hoops. So if your child's having trouble, we want you to call and say they need some help. We'll put them in AIS. It's not a life sentence, guys. It's fluid. So a child can go into AIS for a topic, right? So if Mrs. Beach is doing a topic in math that they're having some difficulty with, Ms. Beach may call you and say, can I put your child in AIS? Let's talk about this. We may call you during a team meeting and say, can we do this? Now, it seems to have a little difficulty. Would it be okay? The same with ELA. And we have AIS and math and ELA because if you're having difficulty in social studies, chances are it's because you're having difficulty with the reading and the writing. And science could be either, right? So they have the AIS. Suppose they get to their topic with Ms. Beach in math, and she says, you're doing great now. Calls you, calls me, child comes out of AIS, goes back into the special. And the teachers who teach the specials, the health teacher, and Mr. Carlos can speak to this, knows that the kids are going to come in and out. Right? So we're not going to hold you responsible if you're not there for work that we didn't teach you. They'll have their last core special, the other English, science, whatever they missed. At the end of the day, those who have special ed may have a skills class. Those of you who have kids who have IEPs, they may have a skills class. If not, they may be in another special. And what happens in 6th grade, because we have 2 ELAs, when they get into 7th grade, one of the ELAs goes away, and they get a foreign language. Okay? They're going to say, you have this every day. You'll see on their schedule when you get it, it'll say days 1 through 6. That means they have that class every day. They're going to have English, math, science, and social studies every day. The only other days that would have days, so if they go to chorus, it may say days 1 and 2. So on days 1 and 2, they'll go to chorus. Then on days 3 and 4, they may go to gym. And then on days 5 and 6, they may go to reading. So you'll see next to this subject, it'll say days, but we're going to go through this in August. We're going to go through this with your children. We're going to go through this with you. If they choose to use a locker next year, we'll get you an extra copy of the schedule. They can post it in their locker. You can post it in the book. You can post it in your kitchen on the refrigerator, on the mirror. It's okay. You know they're not going to know their schedule right away. They'll be running around. They'll be lost. They won't know. Can I go to my locker? Can I not go to my locker? They're going to try and carry everything around in that backpack. Don't let them. We're going to encourage them not to. It's heavy. Sometimes it's bigger than some of the kids. It's not good for their backs. It's not good for them. They get nervous. What if I don't have what we need? So we're going to try and work with them the first couple of weeks of school so that that doesn't happen. Anybody have any questions about the schedule? Yeah.
Are they allowed to go between every class to their lockers?
One more time.
Are they allowed to go between every class to their lockers now?
Mr. DeBellis is going to talk about that when it comes time to like building procedures. It's a good question.
What are the other specials? How is specials for period 1 different from period 8?
How's period,
Well, that's a class that only has 4 area subjects, so the specials are only going to meet once because they're going to have 2 periods of English. So there'll be another period of 4 area subjects. Yes.
What was the part you said about foreign language? Do they learn one, or it's only in the old?
foreign language, they start
So in 7th grade, they get a foreign language. So the English comes out, they'll only get 1 English instead of 2, and they'll take a foreign language instead. But we encourage everyone to take a foreign language. In 7th and 8th grade, they take year 1 of high school class of a foreign language. So if they take Spanish 1, they're going to take half of that class in grade 7 and half of that class in grade 8. So it's easier to get that credit than they go to high school with 1 year of credit for foreign language. So if they went to high school and they wanted to continue their foreign language, they would take Spanish too.
What were the 2 English classes? You said they had 2 separate English classes?
She's asking for 2 separate English classes.
So the 2 English classes are taught by the same teachers. The English classes, one of the classes is really a lot of the reading. So the kids are going to read respectively 3 novels. So the kids are going to read respectively 3 novels. It's it's a lot for them in sixth grade, right? And I know that one of the things they read is a lightning thief. It's a tough book. But they're up for the challenge, they do really well on it, but it's so much nicer when the teacher reads with them in class. So part of it is reading, the rest is writing, grammar, how to make differences in the reading, predict main ideas. So it all kind of infuses together. And we just found out that over the years, it's easier to have that flow than to let it go till the next day. Any more questions?
So it's a student in the IS,
Yeah.
what specials?
So depending on the time of the year. So the specials change every 10 weeks. So every time you get a report card, your child's special is going to change. They last approximately 10 weeks. If your child, say, is an artist, right, and you're saying, oh my God, my kid's an art, I don't want to take them out of art, don't worry, we'll give them art another time of the year. So we have the ability to play with that. We have the ability to change it. So a lot of times we even use it as encouragement. Listen, if you really work really hard on this, I'm not going to make you miss health. They will like health. I'm not going to make you miss STEM. We'll let you take it another time of the year. We got to work this out. And don't forget, guys, that here, there's extra help 3 times a week. Okay, so Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, there's extra help after school. You'll get that at open house. You'll get it starts October 1st. You'll get the teachers' schedules. They either stay 2 half hours. So on Monday, Tuesday, stay from 2:30 to 3, or they stay 1 hour. But they have to give an hour a week. And we encourage you to go, even if the kids say, nope, I got it. I can do this on my own. Go. If they have questions, there's a teacher in the room. So just because if Miss Beach is having math extra help, and they don't have math homework that night, go sit in there with Miss Beach and get your social studies work done. She'll help you if you need help. So it's always a good idea to encourage them to come. Anytime that they feel they need something, if they're having trouble with time management, which a lot of 6th graders do, it's normal. It's great to get an hour or a half hour of homework done before you even hit your house, right?
And with that, it's a great idea to make it just part of their routine. So not like later on down the road when the homework becomes a lot of work or you're fighting with them about getting it done. If you just start off, here's going to be your routine, here's your schedule, we find that's the easiest way for them to fall right in line and build healthy habits.
Any more questions about the schedule? Yeah.
If the child has skills or AIS, are they missing one of the specials?
If a child has skills or AIS, but they're missing one of the specials.
So yes, if the child has skills, every day, they're going to miss their specials. If they have AIS, depending on what they need AIS in, so say they need AIS just in math, they would only go every other day, they would go to the special every other day, and the teachers who teach the special know how to work that out with what's going on in the classroom, so they're not responsible for everything. But if they have skills, yes, they can miss their specials. But our goal, always, least restrictive, right? So our goal always is to keep kids who have special needs in a least restrictive environment. Our goal is to help them. If they can get out of that class, they have health all 3 years. They have art all 3 years. They have STEM all 3 years. They have geography for 2 out of 3 of those years and literacy for 1 of those years. So they've been very good, Mr. House, did the programming for this. They've been very good at putting health in 6th grade to make sure that everybody has a shot at getting it. They're going to get it at some point, and if not, it's mandated in high school.
Thank you.
For if the kid stays after school for extra help, is there flexibility in busing home?
Late bus.
So there's a late bus that starts when extra help starts, and it drops off in the Heights, at the gazebo. It drops off at the park, Midland Avenue Park, and it drops off in the village.
You'll get directions on that. That'll all be issued to you in September later.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Any other questions?
Thank you.
So your kids are all going to get a copy of the schedule mailed home. Listen, they're going to come to you, and they're going to say, Mom, I just spoke to my best friend David, and David's not in my class. Here's what I'm going to tell you. There may be a reason David's not in class. Maybe David has special services that you don't know about. Maybe the classes we try and balance the classes, guys. We really do. We really try and balance the classes as far as having equal numbers across the board for all the classes. There are some children who need co-teach, so there's 2 teachers in that room. That's grouped heterogeneously, so your kid may be in that room. Listen, I always look at it as there's an extra teacher who can help my kid. I don't think it's a bad thing. So I think that before you do that, let's find out why David wants to be with everybody else and see if we can't work it out, because then we would just be switching everybody and we would redo all the classes. And I don't have a problem moving kids, but we have to try and keep the classes balanced. It's very important. It's important for learning. Okay? Thank you.
So Ms. D had mentioned that Kyle started the developmental, departmentalized model where they switch classes. So that was meant to help ease the transition to the 6th grade, but just like Ms. DiFrancesco said, they get lost, they can't open their locker, they don't know when to go. That's all okay, that's all expected. All the teachers build time for that in the day, so there's no teacher that's going to be getting on top of students for being late to class right off the bat. All the teachers are going to be flexible. The whole idea of keeping most of the 6th grade classes on the 1st floor is that it keeps us close to support staff and also the main office. So we know what's going on, it's less distance for them to travel. If there are other areas in the building that they have to go to, the teachers are going to support them. We much as possible try to remember what it was like to be in their shoes. So we know it's a new building, it's unfamiliar. Even though they had buddy day today, which is great, we know that there's going to be times that they're going to be lost, and we're here to support them. We also know that social emotional needs are linked to academic success. Ms. DiFrancesco hosts team meetings for each grade level to talk about what's going on in the class, any needs that arise, students who might be falling behind, new things that are coming up. It's a feedback loop. So we're learning things about your child in the classroom. We've heard obviously things that we need to know from Coddle. However, there's anything going on in your home, anything that you're noticing with your child. One of my favorite phrases that Ms. D uses is that you're the expert on your child. You as the expert inform us, and that'll help feed us into the loop with the teachers. The team meetings are invaluable. The building level principal sits in on them. So if anything comes up, we can help support your children.
You're laughing with your right, because if you're friends with those parents, just because your kids are friends, you might not be friends by the end of 8th grade. Kids change a lot in 8th grade. Their lives change. They start playing sports when they get into 7th grade. So they may be on different teams. Change in the middle school. So be prepared, and that's what we're here for. We're here to help them through the change. I'm not going to tell you that we're going to baby your kids. We're not. We're not going to do that, right? Because our goal is to get them to advocate for themselves. We all want our kids to be able to go out in the world and speak up for themselves. That's important. It's important. So we want to get them to advocate for themselves. We want to get them to feel comfortable saying, there's something wrong here. I don't know what it is, but I don't like the way they're making me feel. That's okay. We'll talk it out. We'll talk it out. We're going to call you. They're middle school. We're going to call you. Okay, so if you see the number on the phone come up, don't get nervous, it's okay. But we're going to call you. If your child's in one of our offices, and we try and tag team, so if he has a kid in his office, I'm going to go in 90% of the time. If I have a kid, he's going to come into me. 2 reasons. It's a perspective, right? Male-female perspective. And kids tend to feel comfortable if there's more people there. Sometimes when they come to us, they bring friends. Can my friends sit with me? And in the beginning of the year, we let them. By this time of the year, it's no. If you want to come talk to us, you come talk to us. Your friend walks you here, thank you so much. Now go back to your class, we're going to talk. So we want the kids to start feeling more empowered. We want them to feel like they have rights, because they do. And we want them to feel like they can speak up for themselves.
So as changes come up, and change is inevitable in life, not all changes are comfortable, but as changes come up, we invite you to share those things with us. If your child is mentioning something that's on their mind, they want somebody to talk to, Ms. DiFrancesco and I work really hard to keep an open door policy. So any student can come in at any time if they need something. So encourage your child to do that if you notice that they're struggling. But also call us if we need to know something. We understand that every child is developing differently, academically, socially, emotionally, physically. Again, it's important to cue us into changes that you're noticing, concerns that you're having. We understand that everybody wants to be accepted and be part of a peer group, and at the same time in middle school, they have a lot of different There's a lot of other goals besides the learning, right? They're finding themselves who they are as a person. Sometimes as you're finding yourself as a person, that causes you to grow closer to some people, further away from other people. So, it's important to be aware of those changes as they're happening and support it and accepting of those changes. We want the whole child to develop. If I had to summarize the two things that I wish for our students to walk away from, would be a sense of resiliency and a sense of accountability. Those two things are going to take you very far. And this is the age where they're going to develop those types of skills. Like Ms. D said, that we want the child to be their own best self-advocate with you behind them to support them. And keep in mind that the role of the parent is going to change and evolve, right? So, eventually as students go on, we're going to start to pull students into their own meetings if they're having some sort of academic difficulty. We probably wouldn't do that with a 6th grader. That would be a parent meeting. But by the time they get to 7th and 8th grade, if there's something going academically, we might call them down and have a meeting with everybody to have them be their own voice. And that's our main goal, is to develop the whole child here at the middle school.
Any questions? Concerns? I'm not gonna hear it.
How do you guys get them to self-advocate?
How do we get them to self-advocate?
Yeah.
That depends on the child, right? So if I'm thinking of a past situation where we get a lengthy email from a parent and then we'll call the parent to find out. When we come down, we won't start the conversation with, listen, mom, dad told me, blah, 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 blah. It'll be more like, what's going on with you? How's your day? And we both have different methods of getting to that.
Guys, just so you know, I'm always bad cop. Just so you know, work it out. So when your kid comes home and says, oh my God, that Miss D, I can't stand, I'm always bad cop. For the first time in all the years we worked together, one person came and said, I'm not going to see anyone. It was the first time I called the mother and said, thank you so much, I was a good cop for the first time ever. So just so you know, I'm always bad cop.
But it depends on the child. But a lot of it is helping them to find their voice.
Do you guys do anything, kind of tell them to do that? Like you set anything up to basically teach them that, or to have them be able to do that? Because I know I have a very quiet child.
Right.
Probably wouldn't have a kid for himself. And we would probably never find out at home either.
Right. He's talking about differences in children. Some children might automatically be comfortable speaking about it. And we meet every child where they are to help them through that. We have some children who are very quiet. And our goal is to get them to share whatever it is
And
that...
it helps us through the team meeting, right? So when we meet with the teachers 2 or 3 times a month, we're going to get perspective from math, science, social studies, English, where they're all going to be different in those classes. Some kids excel in math, they're going to be great in the speeches class, but they're not great writers. So that teacher's going to have a different perspective of that child, and we're going to get to hear all those perspectives. We're also in and out of the 6th grade classes at the beginning of the year all the time. I walk in and scream, hello, good morning. They jump out of their seats the first couple of times it happens, and then you know that they just yell back at me, good morning. But this is what we do. We want to see them. We try and go down at the beginning of the year. We want to go down to the lunchroom. We want to see what they do at recess. We want them to know that we're around and that we're here if they need us. So they know that we're just not 2 people who sit in offices.
Presence in the building is invaluable. So walking down the hallway, if somebody just doesn't look right, that might be a reason to check in on the student.
Do parents get those notes from the team meetings?
Do parents get notes from the team meetings?
So sometimes we get a call during the team meeting. Sometimes it's my job to follow up during the team meeting. So oftentimes if a child is spoken about and there's something that needs to happen, if there's something that we don't think is going right, or something that we're going great, we may say, Ms. Beach is doing great in her class. Ms. Beach is going to give that phone call and say that your kid's doing wonderful, congratulations. If it's something that we have to talk about AIS, or we think that your kid's looking sad in class, or we see your kid at lunch being by themselves, or that kind of thing, that will be a time where maybe myself and Eric, with the teacher who sees that, or us who see it, may reach out to you. So yes, there's often time, a lot of follow-up, because then we're going to have that next meeting, right? We're going to have to talk and say, well, this is what happened. We talk to mom, we talk to dad, we talk to grandma, grandpa, whoever we have to talk to find out what's going on to try and make it better.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for that.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, moving along, thank you very much. Now, delivery of instruction from a teacher's perspective, Ms. Beach and Mr. Calasuno.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to talk briefly about some of the major points about our delivery of instruction here at the middle school, and then I will turn it over to Ms. Beach, who will take you through kind of the day in the life of a middle school student. So in the middle school, technology, I'm sure just as it is at Cottle, has become a major component of our middle school program. So the students will be assigned Chromebooks at the beginning of the year, and they will be used individually both at school and at home. One of the major things is those Chromebooks have to be in school every day. So they're used in every class throughout the school day. Please make sure that they charge them at night. If for whatever reason a student forgets their Chromebook, it's not a reason to panic. We do have a loaner system here at the school, so the student can come to any office, any teacher, any counselor, and we will make sure they get that loaner device. Google Classroom is embedded into every single one of our classrooms, delivery of instruction. That is really always the main source of information. So if you're interested in seeing where your child is or what assignments they have and what they're missing, Google Classroom would be that main source, as well as the last bullet down here, the teacher website, which is posted to our school web pages. You can always go on, look for the teacher's name, click on there, and there'll be usually the Google Calendar. It will be on the teacher's website, and you can go right there to see what assignment was due on which particular day, and you could check in with your child and say, I saw that, XYZ assignment was due today. Did you do it? Can I see it? Etc. Also, active learning. Dr. Linehan mentioned earlier LATIC. So over the summer, we did have a cohort of teachers participate in what's called the Learner Active Technology Infused Classroom. So we did have professionals come in, and they worked with teachers on different blended projects, different, research-based instruction. We actually had a high school class create different projects and games. And they went down and actually presented the games to a classroom at Cottle, and the Cottle students got to vote on it. So it really brings together the school district and brings together the buildings, and we love to see that. We have another cohort of teachers signed up to engage in that programming this summer. Okay, so at this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Beach, who will review the day in the life of a sixth grader.
So I'm going to touch on these following points. So for reading, being an elementary school teacher for the majority of my life, we really make a transition of not learning to read, but reading to learn. And you'll see that in all the content areas. Maybe not so much in math. For ELA, they're engrossed in novel studies the same way they were at Cottle. They are also doing 4 independent book reviews, which is why we're giving them the time to read in class also, so that they could then create a book report. Technology and learning, like we've said, you have to embrace the Chromebook as a family. It needs to go from home to school, school to home. It has to be charged. And you will see the children. They're really more invested in it too, you'll see in 6th grade, because every teacher is using it in a different way in their classroom. They will then even tell us what so-and-so is doing to make sure that maybe we can integrate it in a different way. I know for me coming in, as a new math teacher, they would give me ideas all the time of what they maybe saw in another room and how I can integrate it and make my class better. So they're the teachers too with us. Communication. Everybody's touched on this. It's very important that we talk about self-advocacy. And what's one way they could self-advocate for themselves is, I know that we try to explain to them that we're all living this crazy world, this crazy life with them. And one way they could self-advocate is if they can't do something, they write the email. They could CC their parents on it, but they write the email to us. They include why they couldn't get their work done. I encourage you, if it is something that they're struggling with, I know this is what I'm doing with my middle schooler, write the email, CC me on it, and I'll see the response that the teacher gives. I know as parents, what I see works very well too is when you want to inform us specifically of something, it helps to do a group email so that we're all on the same page, we're all reading the same email. Ms. Blanchard said, make sure that they know, even though it's something maybe that was isolated to ELA, put it on a group chain, because we all see your child within that day, so maybe that situation is affecting them somewhere in our rooms. Ms. D talked about our meetings. They're essential, they're amazing. So we sit weekly, we sit bi-weekly, bi-monthly, and we have great conversations, and we talk about the children, and we talk about what we see, and again, what I see may be different than what Mr. Moore sees, but we're all kind of bringing our heads together and making sure that we're meeting their needs. Homework. So I asked my colleagues today, for homework, we're gonna say an hour. Anything more than that, we would like to know. We're going to say an hour, and we're going to say that ELA, Social Studies, Science does a very good job of posting. So Mr. Moore is going to post what is due for the week. It's not necessarily all due the next day, and that's we're trying to get them to understand that also. My homework, because I'm teaching them a skill at a particular moment, is more due the next day, 10, 15 questions. I try not to overkill. It's a skill, so we give a little bit and we move on. But it shouldn't be any more than 1 hour, and they told me to really reiterate that to you guys. If you see it more than an hour, then again, that's an email to us. So something's not working between the homeschool connection. Our science of learning is obviously our varied teaching method. So what works for me in my classroom may be different, but the kids should be exposed to different personalities, different methods as they go into the classes. We want them to be excited. We want them to be engaged. We want them to be empowered. And I think we saw a lot of that today. We had a great morning with them. I hope you went home and heard about our morning, because it was wonderful. As Ms. D said, it was organized chaos, which made them excited. So we look forward to seeing them in September. Thank you. So basically, Mr. C spoke about that. So when you go to my website, for example, my website takes you to my digital planner, so you'll be able to see the homework. You can have access to your child's Google Classroom. They have to give it to you, obviously. I know a lot of the children that are in a skills program, the parents are invited by our special education teachers. But I know for my gen ed kids, basically, if you go to Mrs. Beach's website, there will be a part to click on it, and you will see my digital planner. So my digital planner will show you exactly what I did in class, exactly what's for homework, and what's to come, looking ahead. But as a parent, it depends on what you want your role to be. I know for me, I tried to take a step back as a middle school parent, so I stuck to the website. Sometimes going into the Google Classroom could be overwhelming for you as a parent, so.
So computers are not second nature to me. So I have to often go to James and say, show me how to do this. This is what I'm yelling, you gotta come in, I don't know how to do this. So if there's something you don't know how to do, or if there's something that's difficult, because now you're gonna have all these different Google Classrooms you have to go in, just call and we'll get you set up with Mr. Moore. He'll help you. That's part of what he does. It's not just to help the kids, it's not just to help us, it's to help you as well navigate. And when Mrs. Beach said that the skills teachers will share with you, oftentimes they have a sharing of electronic planners. That goes for kids who have 504s as well. And if you need that done, because there's a disconnect, right? The kids just aren't getting their homework done, it's too much, and you're coming home from work, and they're supposed to have it out, it's not, call us. We'll share you in, we can do that. So of course we try and make them, again, they have to advocate, we want them to be self-motivated, but if it gets to that conundrum where it's not happening, call, we'll help you navigate that, we'll help you see what's going on in an easier way, because all those classrooms are tough for me. Right?
It's okay. One is, are the grades also posted on the?
Oh, that's a very good difference. So again, living the world of of an elementary school parent, our grades are live. They are in the moments. So you are going to see everything in the moment. Our portal shuts down, I believe, 2 weeks before, right before report cards. So, but besides that, everything is live in the moment. It is very different than Cottle, which is huge because you as a parent will have access to the portal. So you will see everything in real time. And the students, I mean, a lot of the students too, as families, you guys decide if the portal is something you want them to have access to. A lot of students are also. They will tell me if I put something incorrectly into the portal. Within a minute, they will be at my door. You put it in wrong. So they are very attuned to it.
So, and with mom and dad from an SEL perspective, from our perspective, the portal is a double-edged sword, right? So the kid who wants to get on principal's list, the kid, you're gonna have principal's list up here, you're gonna have high honor roll, you're gonna have honor roll. They want to get that, and they see something in a portal that makes them upset, they usually end up with us, we call you, and we have to talk them through whatever is happening. So be careful, because oftentimes too, there could be a grade that just wasn't put in, and it looks like they have a 50. They don't really have a 50. There was a grade that just wasn't put on. It's live. It's just exactly what Ms. Beach said, it's live. So sometimes, and the kids will get used to this, as they start looking at their portal, they come running in, I have a 50. How did I get a 50? I don't have a 50. Or I have a 70, I'm supposed to have a 90. Because they keep track of their grades automatically. So if it's not entered in immediately, they get upset. So just be prepared for some of this stuff.
And you know your child. I mean, you know if you want them to have access to that and where that can lead you.
And then, you guys mentioned like the legging fee as one of the books. Is that encouraged to be read in the summer?
No. There'll be a summer reading.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the English teachers in the 6th grade will send out information in conjunction with the 5th grade teachers, basically, so we'll get that to you. It comes out in late June. They've already worked on it. It's 90% done, I believe, so we're set on that.
Mr. Moore are teaching 3 days a week during the summer, so if you haven't gotten the flyer, see that lady back there, that first lady with the glasses on? That's Mrs. Nicolettos, and we don't live without her. We love her. Let Ms. Nicolettos know, because you can sign up for summer scholars. It's 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You can go 1 week, you can go 2 weeks, you can go 3 weeks. You can send your kid for the whole 5 weeks. They'll get their math packet done. They'll get their summer reading done. They'll get stuff done, and they'll get to know 2 of the teachers who are going to be in their 6th grade classes.
If you're inclined to, Mr. Keough sent out information to the district, so you can take a look at the superintendent's happening, if you have a reference for that. Thank you. Mr. DeBellis?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Scott DeBellis. I'm one of the assistant principals here. I see some familiar faces. I see some new faces, so welcome to everyone, especially if this is your first time coming up to middle school. I'm not going to get into too many of the procedures because we'll spend a good amount of time doing that during the orientation. We will send information out, but we will have an orientation in August. We'll give the students some time to set their locker up, to walk around, take a look around the school when it's not busy and when we don't have people in the hallways. They got a chance to do it today a little bit, but you had a full school, so it's a little intimidating when you see some of the older students running around as opposed to just being able to walk and do it in a calm fashion. So we will have time to do that. Like Ms. D said, and I'll go through it in a quick second, lockers. Some students, since COVID, have decided that they didn't want to use lockers. They are not as big as they were in the previous years. I think 6th graders are still using them more compared to the 7th and 8th graders. But again, we will assign everyone a locker, and then obviously it's up to them. We're not going to force them. However, like Ms. D said, carrying that backpack around, I think, is a bad idea for a number of different reasons. If they are going to use their locker, what we do is we suggest to them and we try to help them set up periods 1 through 4, which is before lunch. Take the books that you need, take what you need, and then right before lunch you'll switch your books out, you'll put your things from the morning away, and then periods 6, 7, and 8, you'll bring those things after lunch. This way you don't need to carry everything around. I think over the years too, the teachers have done a great job of digitizing everything. So you don't need all of this paper, and you don't need all of the things, the books that we did, when I grew up. So, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Just 1 or 2 quick things. I cut probably 30 locks a year because students forget the combination. They use the combination locks where you can reset it and they don't realize it, and then before they know, they shut it and now they don't know the combination. We have the old master locks. They take a little bit of practice. I'm confident anyone that we've ever tried to teach to use it takes a couple of days, maybe a week or so, and they practice at home, but it is by far the best in terms of security, and we also are able to get into it so that we don't always need to cut it. So it saves you a good $6, $7, $8, all right? We tell the parents all the time, I'm sorry I had to cut the lock, but that's why we ask for that combination. Obviously, we always let the students know the locker belongs to the school district. It doesn't belong to any particular student, which means that we can go into it anytime. You can decorate it, they get very fancy with some of the things they put in there, but ultimately, it's really to help them stay organized. If they're going to use it, put their things away, all right? But we'll talk a little bit more. Ms. D, Mr. Sullivan had mentioned it. The students should be used to changing. Obviously, it's a little bit of a bigger building. Students only have 3 minutes, though. If there's an extenuating circumstance, they forgot something in their locker, the teacher will let them go and get it. But what we're trying to do, avoid that downtime, that unstructured time where they're, with their friends hanging out. That's when, unfortunately, middle school students sometimes make bad decisions. So we want them to just move along, get into their next class, and not socialize. They'll have time during recess. They'll have time during lunch when they'll be able to do that, unwind a little bit, and obviously, not during the periods. Like I said, they only have 3 minutes to do it. Attendance. So research will tell you whatever you want to put into Google, especially at the high school years. The academic success of students is directly related to their attendance. And the one thing that you'll also read, if you go a little further, is those habits are created when they're young. So if they're getting the habit of taking off days, again, people are going to be sick, we understand that. There are going to be family emergencies or things that you need to, attend to, we understand that. However, New York State looks at what's called chronic absenteeism, okay? And that basically says that if you are absent more than 10% of the school days, so you look at 180 school days, okay, if you're absent 18 or more times, you are labeled as chronically absent by New York State. Okay, and that's something that we will monitor throughout the year. You'll get some lovely letters from me just reminding you your child is now at 84% attendance. Please make every effort to have them come in. All right, and obviously we're still dealing with either COVID or strep or some other virus that I think is surfacing now. So we get it, but what I say is use it like a savings plan. Don't just take the days to take them. Save them for when you need them, so that obviously, number one, you're not missing instruction, and number two, you're here inside of the school, okay? We will have, again, I'll just touch on lunch very quickly. I know somebody had a question or there was a comment. We keep the sixth graders by themselves for lunch. They will spend the first half of lunch, 22 minutes or so at recess. They'll have access to the field. We try to keep them outside as long as we can. I think there were only a handful of days that we weren't able to go out, and that's really when the field got covered with ice and snow, and it wasn't safe. But we try to bring them out January, February. I'm a former phys ed teacher, so I believe the fresh air and getting them outside and running around and stretching is good for them, all right? And then the second half, we'll transition them into the cafeteria, and then they'll have lunch in there, and they'll be able to, eat and be able to socialize with their friends. And they'll have that whole cafeteria to themselves, which is also great, so that they can spend a little bit more time, as opposed to being with the older kids just yet, all right? Any questions on anything that I touched on so far? No? I'm going to run while I can. All right, thank you. I'll be back.
Moving along to extracurricular activities and clubs, Mr. Colasuno.
So up on the board, you could see the wide variety of clubs that we offer here at Tuckahoe Middle School. Basically at the beginning of each school year, so the same will be true next school year, within the first few weeks of school, we will hold a club or activity fair. So the kids don't have to memorize what clubs we have, before the school year starts. When they come in, all of the advisors will either be outside or inside behind a table with the poster created. They'll have a sign-up sheet. They'll have their Google Classroom code posted for the students to walk around and decide which clubs they may be interested in. And they may join a club initially and decide they don't like it and decide to pick another club, and that's totally okay. So throughout the year, it's a fluid situation, and they can go in and out of clubs as they choose. They meet at different times throughout the day, so some of our clubs do meet at lunch, others meet after school, but all of our clubs pretty much have a Google Classroom code, so the students will join that Google Classroom page. That's where they'll find out the meeting dates, and more information about that club will be posted there. And as you can see up on the board, we do have a pretty wide variety of clubs here at the middle school, and we really believe that that allows each child to demonstrate their abilities that go beyond the four walls of the classroom. So it really does impact the whole child. On the next slide, a big question that's always asked has to do with athletics, so I figured I'd talk about it now. In New York State, so we are governed by the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. We fall under what's called Section 1, so there are 11 sections throughout the state. Basically, at New York State, athletics begin in grade 7, so that's why we really do encourage 6th graders to sign up for a club or activity in their first year, figure out what they like and don't like, because the sports start in grade 7. We do have a wide variety of opportunities to participate in athletics, so we have monthly athletic director meetings that we attend, and basically, when you look at the small and medium-sized schools throughout the county, we do have one of the more robust programs across the board. The sports that you see on the board, the ones that do not have the parentheses next to them, we offer at the modified level, so modified traditionally is for 7th and 8th grade students, but there are some sports that are offered only at the JV or varsity level. If those are the sports that your child is interested in, there is a process that we will go through. It's called the athletic placement process. It's a process that exists across New York State for every public high school. Please just contact me, as early as possible so we can begin that process, or the steps of that process, I would say in the summer going into 7th grade, so that, we have plenty of time and there's no issue before the start date, okay? If there's at any point a question about an athletic or an extracurricular program, please feel free to reach out to me, all right? And we will definitely handle it and make sure that your child's involved in any way possible, all right? Any questions on, yep, sure. So typically that'll be posted. So when they go to the club fair, the advisor will pretty much say, Mondays at lunch or Fridays after, they'll post the schedule. Sometimes there'll be changes, and that'll always be posted to Google Classroom as well. Any other club or sport-related questions? Okay, I will call Mr. DeBellis up to wrap us up.
And just to kind of piggyback on the piece, Hubert, I think you had asked also as well. So we have a late bus 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So the clubs will coincide with those days that we have the late bus. This way, in case students aren't able to be picked up. So again, we try to put the extra help. We try to put the clubs in activities. Sports, obviously, as they get a little bit older, are usually going to be almost every day. So that's a little different. But we do try to coincide so they do have a way to get home. Okay? And you just take a look up here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we have, I think, a number of activities that we try to, again, not only focus on the academic, but also the social and emotional piece. We started the trip back up again this year called Boundless Adventures. If you have vertigo, it's not a good idea to get on the really high course, just so you know. But it's a team building experience with the kids. You get to see them in a different light. Kids that are not always your most athletic, or the ones that are not necessarily into sports, you watch them zip across these, lines 30 feet in the air. It's amazing. And we, had the opportunity to also watch them help each other. So you see a student get stuck, and all of a sudden, because, you have to wait for the person in front of you to move. You can't go around them. So, you see them kind of talking through and getting them over that point, and it really is a nice opportunity. So we try to always focus on, again, not just the academics, but also that social emotional. We try to put a number of activities together for them so that they can enjoy it, celebrate all of their different accomplishments throughout the year, and make sure that they're also having some fun at the same time. So again, we'll talk a little bit more during the orientation. It was a pleasure speaking with everybody this evening. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Linehan for the closing remarks. All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I thought I would just close by saying I'm really proud of the middle school and the staff here. And, being a high school principal, I can guarantee you when they leave here in the 8th grade, they are ready for high school and doing wonderful things. So, with great staff. Keep in mind the small school research, especially with clubs and activities, but also in academics. Every kid gets to excel and find themselves, and the relationships between the teachers and the staff members and the students is beyond none, really. So that's my closing remark. If you have any final questions, yeah. The day starts 7:42. Students the buses arrive, they start coming 7:15. There's a warning bell at 7:35. And we're off to the races at 7:42. Not yet. That should be coming out in July. Usually a couple of days before the school starts. There'll be a new principal here next year. I don't know if you know I'm retiring, so I'm not going to decide that for him, but he's aware of it, though. I did speak to him about it. All right? All right, listen, thanks very much for coming, everybody. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.